Well, friends, I've got a confession to make to you. 2020, 2 summers ago, I think I was on the verge of a complete nervous breakdown. So I went out, I bought a motorcycle, and that helped to be back on 2 wheels to escape the lockdowns. But it wasn't until I discovered Dr. Steve Turley that I really got a grip on things. I found this guy on YouTube, and it was amazing. I was like, who is this man? Because nobody lampoons and eviscerates the left better than Dr. Stephen Turley, and that is our guest today. Dr. Stephen Turley joining us now from the home state of President Joe Biden in Delaware. Dr. Turley, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure, Jim, but you had to remind me where I live. I'll tell you.
Okay, so Dr. Turley, I'm telling you, like I said, that 2 years ago when I first discovered you, and you were talking about all the riots that were going on, and you just had a way of discussing these things that like nobody else I've ever seen. I mean, you're close to 1 million subscribers now on YouTube. Did you ever in the world think when you started YouTubing that this is where this would go?
Oh, not at all. When I started on November 1st, 2016, just so, 7 full days before the big November 8th of that year. And I made this extended argument that Trump was going to win. So this is at behest of a colleague of mine who's now the president of Turley Talks. And he said to me, look, nobody's talking like this. You got to make the argument, why you think Trump was going to win. The basic argument was, it's just been my shtick ever since, is we're moving more into a post-secular, post-globalist world. And Brexit, that happened on June 23rd of that year, was just an indicator of this larger shift. And I thought Trump was going to be our Brexit election. I still can remember loading up those videos each day and then running back to see how many people watched them. Yeah. And I'd see numbers like 12, right. Now I'm a very devout Christian. That's a good number to start with. You could change the world with that number. So, but that's what it was. 12, maybe 24, maybe 48. And I was like, man, nobody's watching this. And my colleague just said, just keep going, and the algorithm will take care of you. And I just kept going. I was able to gloat after Trump won, and I kept loading up, and lo and behold, some of these videos would start taking on a life of their own. They'd hit 1,000 views or 5,000 views, and that's when I started seeing the subscribers tick up. And I was still fully in academia at a university and a class school at the time. And, I never dreamed I could actually really do this full time, but lo and behold, just the last year and a half or so, we're almost at 1 million. And this is my full-time job. I don't have to deal with the woke academia anymore.
Yes. Well, so I met you about 6 months ago at a Doug Mastriano rally out in the middle of a cow pasture in Pennsylvania. And you gave a speech at that rally that just blew me away, because it was like, these are the 4 reasons why conservatives are going to win in the end. And really, Dr. Turley, that's why I love you so much, because you're an optimist. And when I watch you, I always, walk away from your videos thinking, hey, this man is making sense of this mad, crazy, turned upside down world that we live in. And I want to get to that in just a little bit. But first, I want to ask you about the state of things as it stands right now in July of 2022. We've got Dutch farmers who are fighting for their survival. And of course, they're being, sneered at by all the elitists in Europe. We've got President Biden, who just yesterday announced that he is going to be announcing in the future some sort of executive order on the climate. So who knows if we're going to have climate lockdowns coming or what. But just could you talk a little bit about these popular uprisings we're seeing around the world, not just in the Netherlands, but in Italy. We saw the Canadian truckers, and here we go.
It's all over the place. Yeah, India, the BJP party, even China is talking more Confucianism than it is communism at this point. It's
Sri Lanka.
Yeah, absolutely. It's Sri Lanka imploding. Panama looks like it's next to go. You mentioned Italy; their government's imploded at this point. And the nationalist right there, Matteo Salvini and Giorgia Meloni, who I was with 2 years ago in Verona, Italy, at the World Congress of Families, amazing international organization, pro-life organization. It looks like they're poised to take power. They're going to win in a landslide. So what's going on? Well, basically, the globalist world has reached its peak. And scholars have actually been recognizing this for some time now. I discovered this field of scholarship called post-secular studies when I was doing my doctoral research at Durham University in the UK. And it was actually more of a side field. I was doing a cultural anthropological study of the early Christianity. And as part of studying these cultural anthropologists, I ended up stumbling into this world of post-secular studies where more and more scholars were saying basically the modern liberal globalist world, which is basically just a one-size-fits-all political and economic system. That's key. What makes globalism so unique is it replaces civilization with a system, with protocols that are centralized and are overseen by technocratic elites that try to convince us that we're most free when we give them most control over their lives. That's kind of the mad genius of it. Well, they were arguing that world that basically started after World War II was coming to an end. It exhausted itself. There's actually a book called Exhausting Modernity out there. And they were arguing that in its place, more and more populations are returning to nation, culture, custom, tradition, tribe, even like in the case of Russia or China, civilization, India as well, what are known as rising civilization states. So the world order is changing, but it's changing via birth pangs. I mean, globalists are not going to let go of their power that easily. And so what we're seeing globalists becoming more intense, liberals becoming, more frantic and more, unhinged and more extreme in their position. And because they have all the cultural levers of power that they've accumulated over the last 60 years, it looks like they're always winning and they're always in control and the like. And yet, every single time they do it, and I mean that every single time, there is this massive populist blowback and backlash because the populations of the world don't want it anymore. Elites want to maintain globalism, but the massive populations of the world, they want to go back to all the identity markers that defined who they've been for thousands of years. So that's why religion is exploding all over the place. Rodney Stark argues, the sociologist from Baylor University argues that we're seeing the single greatest religious renewal we have ever seen. And that's why we're also seeing a demographic renewal going on, where conservative families are having kids and secular liberal woke people basically have stopped having kids. And so their world is literally imploding because of how they live. And so it's very turbulent, it's very crazy, but my analysis tries to focus on the myriad of ways in which this populist, very organic return to nation culture, custom, and tradition, most particularly religious traditions, is the wave of the future, and it does inevitably win, even though it hits a lot of roadblocks along the way.
Well, isn't that what Trumpism really was all about? The liberals don't understand. They look at us and they think, how can you Christians, how can you people, support a man like Trump who's had such, a scandalous personal life, and his demeanor is not that of a Christian. They just have never understood that we are tired of politicians who pay lip service to, all the culturally conservative things that we care about and don't get anything done. It was Donald Trump who gave us the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade.
You got it. I mean, from an analytical perspective, there's an individualist way of analyzing, and there's the holist way of analyzing. This is classic sociology. You'll learn this in Sociology 101, basically. So an individualist analysis looks at the individual persons and their characters and their traits, and they see how they affect society. But a holist vision, again, you need them both. The holist vision actually looks at what individual people represent, that these larger dynamics or trends that a person. So I like pointing out, I see a teenager. I taught young people for a number of years. I see a teenager with blue hair and piercings and so forth, and I say, why are you doing that? And they say, because I want to be an individual. And I smile and say, then why are you conforming? Why are you conforming to this countercultural fashion that a lot of executives right now are getting rich off of? There's nothing new here. You embody something much larger than yourself. And what liberals never seem to understand is no matter what individualist traits you can pick on Trump, the holist movement that he represented, which, by the way, is part of his character, nationalism, populism, traditionalism, loyalty to inheritance and the like, that is part of his character. I didn't like the Never Trumpers who tried to split his political views from his personal. That what we have to understand is that in of itself is enough for those of us who are concerned about a liberal woke movement that makes Trump's failures pale in comparison. No matter what Trump did, no matter what he stood for, it does not come close to the kind of absurdity and insanity that we have seen, particularly from the woke left since the fall of Roe.
Yes, and what do you make of this charade of this January the 6th committee going on right now? I've actually sat and watched hours of, it's all so very carefully choreographed. Yeah. And just watching, I mean, all the answers are totally prepared. All the witnesses say exactly what they're supposed to say. And, it's like if they can't get an indictment on Trump, they want us to feel just so ashamed that we would never vote for him again. And it's really laughable, Dr. Turley. It's like they've become so desperate. They're just attempting to shame us and anybody. I mean, I covered all of those Trump rallies. Okay, all three of the Stop the Steal rallies. I was there January the 6th. I was there for the inauguration. You know what I saw? I saw mostly evangelical Christians from all over the country who came. These were good, upstanding citizens. No, this was not an insurrection, because you don't conduct an insurrection unless you're armed. Where are all the guns that were supposed to be part of this insurrection, right? It lasted 2 hours. People, were engaging in illegal activity for a couple of hours, nothing compared to what we saw 2 years ago with the BLM riots. But don't you think this just demonstrates just how really shallow, hypocritical, and desperate they are?
It does. And it actually shows how out of touch they are.
Yeah.
It shows it is a kind of Marie Antoinette moment. At the moment we have record inflation. Gas prices are bankrupting people at the pump. We have a southern border that's imploded. We got a baby formula shortage. At the moment, I mean, you have the geopolitical order unraveling right before our very eyes, mass starvation going around the world. At that very moment, all they can do is fixate on J6. And the one person we have on videotape openly calling for an insurrection, Ray Epps, is vacationing in the Bahamas or something. I don't know where he is, but I just saw that. that New York Times picture, and he's standing in front of this very lovely RV. I wonder where he got the funds for that.
That is crazy. Isn't it the Ray Epps thing? It was like, I've resisted, most of the conspiracy theories about January 6th, but there's something going on there.
Exactly. Everyone's saying it. I mean, Tucker's saying it best. It's like, this is, this is the one guy that Adam Kinzinger should be going, full throttle against, and he turns out to be the greatest paragon of virtue that have ever walked the planet. No, I mean, it's a kangaroo court. The conclusion, the verdict has already been arrived at, and so now they're just trying to justify the verdict. This is classic. It's just cancel culture in a new form. Cancel culture, by definition, seeks to cancel you, and therefore they have to find reasons and justifications for doing it. So they'll call us white supremacists, right? Well, they don't call us they don't try to cancel us because we're white supremacists. They want to cancel us, and therefore we're white supremacists. Because you can't cancel a virtuous grandmother. You can't cancel a little child playing in the sandbox. You have to cancel monsters, or that's the only way you can try to gain some support. No, this is a disaster. It's not going anywhere. They've done polls on this when they align all the different issues that people are concerned about with the upcoming midterms. J6 falls dead last, very close to, by the way, Roe, because the one demographic that we have historically that is absolutely makes abortion their number one political issue, and you and I know them. We know them near and dear to our hearts. The one demographic that study after study after study shows has abortion as their number one issue for determining who they vote for are pro-life women. so they can't catch a break on any of this. So J6 is down the list of priorities. Roe is down the list of priorities. And so it just demonstrates how out of touch they are. And then Liz Cheney, the crown jewel of all this is Liz Cheney is going to be voted out of office in a couple of weeks.
Right.
That's the beauty. Adam Kinzinger is gone. I mean, it's an illegitimate committee, for heaven's sakes. It goes against the adversarial principle. We have to have both sides equally represented. You've got to have the opposing side be able to put together their own defense, which by definition involves them picking who's going to make that defense. Nancy Pelosi turned down Jim Jordan and Kevin McCarthy and all that sort of stuff. And so it's a kabuki theater. That's all it is. And for anyone to take that seriously shows they are fellow participants in the kabuki theater, like ABC News and NBC News were, and CNN, when they showed AOC handcuffed.
Oh, goodness.
Right. And they literally participate in this political cult, these strange rituals and liturgies of these processions, these marches, and all their icons and their oppression and their persecutions and their chanting and the like. It's a bizarre cultic kind of manifestation that the media is fully embraced in. And I think we have the high court, the magisterium of that, and that's J6 committee. It's a fraud.
Well, so they know that Liz is going to get routed. So now, yesterday, I just saw the first story that, she will be Pence's running mate. And boy, Trump is going to have to worry about that, right? Which is
so out of time. I mean, that ship has so sailed. I don't even know what to say. I mean, yeah, the old neocon, what do you want to? Yeah, Rhino, kind of the Republican in name only. I prefer Diablo, Democrat and all but label.
Yes,
right. That paradigm is dead. That's gone. That gave us Bush Senior. That gave us Bush. Gave us. Well, Dole was a pretty good guy, I have to say. So I tend to leave him alone there. But that certainly gave us GW, and it gave us McCain, and it gave us Romney, and they were disasters, literally disasters, every one of them. I was a big supporter of George W. Bush in 2000, but then notice he just went askew and awry and went full Wilsonian globalist.
Yeah.
And he kept the moral issues alive, but you could see slowly but surely all his neocon advisors were becoming pro-choice. They're becoming totally, pro-alternative lifestyles. Even Liz Cheney right now is totally all pro-alternative lifestyles. You could see it. That's the key to what ironically someone like a Pence would be. Is this is a person who cedes the culture wars to the left and focuses solely on economic issues and defeating Vladimir Putin, the great, Satan of our age. It's all just such nonsense, and nobody wants it anymore.
Well, Dr. Turley, these are respectable Republicans, so obviously we're not very respectable here. But so you, though,
deplorable. We're deplorable.
I love being a deplorable. So, but if you can give us the short version of the 4 reasons why, you've kind of alluded to one of those earlier, the 4 reasons why we are going to win demographically.
Oh my. Okay. So, yes, very quickly. So we're moving from a modern world to a postmodern world. So we're moving from a secular, and this is going on all over the world. And it'll happen more or less in the West last, because we're the real carriers of secularism. But we're moving from a secular age to a post-secular age where religion and so forth can flourish. And we're seeing that play out, secondly, in the rise of what's known as post-security politics. So the nation state, wherever we lived, our countries, gave us at least 3 kinds of securities. It gave us border security, so we're not being invaded all the time. It gave us some kind of economic security, so I can have some decent material conditions for myself, my family, my neighbors. And it gave us some kind of cultural security. We could worship and we could flourish in the customs and traditions of our forefathers. All 3 of those, globalism is modernist secular globalism has eroded. It's eroded national sovereignty. It's eroded our economic stability, shipping our jobs overseas and the like, our manufacturing jobs, particularly overseas. And it now recasts our customs and traditions as bigoted and racist and all that sort of stuff. So there's this massive backlash of what's called nationalism, populism, and traditionalism. Nationalism is reestablished, like what we saw with Brexit, reestablishing our national sovereignty. Populism, which is protecting our manufacturing and industrial jobs from being just shipped off to the cheapest overseas place, and then our traditionalism. We're going back to culture, custom, traditions, something to be revered and honored rather than vilified and lampooned. And at the heart of this shift back to tradition is the third thing, and that's the reawakening of religion that's going on all over the world. Scholars don't know quite why we're seeing 2 religious revivals in China and this massive Hindu revival in India, and in sub-Saharan Africa, the place of the largest population growth in the world. The church is actually growing faster than the population growth, suggesting massive conversions. Or how we have a Viktor Orban in Hungary who's reawakening Christian civilization along with the Law and Justice Party in Poland, or even in Russia, where 1991 they only had 2,000 functioning churches at the end of the Soviet Union. Today they're approaching 60,000. The Journal for the Scientific Study of Religion in 2012 concluded Russia is going through a bona fide Christian revival. What's going on here? Well, scholars don't necessarily know, but we can see if we're moving from a secular world to a post-secular world, and if that involves this blowback against the post-security politics eroding our borders, our economy, and our culture, then the return to religion is all part of this pushback, this blowback against globalism. And at the heart of that return of religion, fourthly, we're going back to the traditional family. In a short, secularists don't have kids. They're always well below the replacement level of 2.1 children per couple, whereas conservative religious, particularly conservative Christians, are having more kids than ever in many respects. There's right now a 30% fertility differential between your typical evangelical and your typical secularist. And demographics is destiny. And we're finding that children that grow up in conservative Christian homes have about 80% retention rate. They keep that faith into adulthood. And so that's why scholars are predicting that by the end of this century, we're going to have upwards of nearly 1 billion conservative Christian, Mormon, and Amish patriots filling our nation. That is where we're really headed.
Boy, I tell you, that was like when you spelled it out, when I heard you give that speech, I thought, wow, this is awesome. Like, you're so right. I mean, we see that right here in Front Royal. This is a real conservative Catholic community. You come to Mass here on Sunday, what do you see? You see big families. And most of these, and this is something else they don't understand, like people who are actually Bible Christians or conservative Catholics, you know, they catechize their children. They teach them. So they have a much higher batting average than the rest of the loony left, because, you know, they think right now that you know, kids are bad for the environment. So you're right. They're gonna extinguish themselves.
That's the irony. This is what, to me, made the pro-life movement so beautiful, continues to make the pro-life movement so beautiful. We wanted to overturn Roe, and we wanted to restore the dignity of every human life. That includes the human life of the children of far left lunatics. Yeah. We consider even their lives to be every bit as sacred as our own. Now, they don't listen to us, they cut us off, but ironically, they're cutting us off to their own detriment.
Amen. Well, Dr. Stephen Turley, I cannot thank you enough. You just get me so fired up, man. And it's just a blessing. You know, it's like we have an obligation as Christians, I think, to cultivate the virtue of hope. And that's what you do. That's why I appreciate you so much, brother. So God bless you. Thank you. You deserve all of those million subscribers on YouTube. And I certainly hope you will come back with us again, Dr. Stephen Turley.
I would love to. It'd be my honor. And thank you for everything that you've done, for particularly for the pro-life movement. Obviously, you see your labor was not in vain. And the overturning of Roe, I pray, is just the beginning.
Sir, Dr. Turley, God bless you.
God bless you.